Are you ready to descend into the darkness? Join me as we uncover 3 true, chilling tales from the depths of the most haunting basements. Stories of basements, those spaces beneath our feet that hold secrets, darkness, and sometimes unspeakable horrors. Our first story takes us to a small, forgotten town, nestled amidst rolling hills and shrouded in an unsettling silence. The house stood at the edge of town, a dilapidated Victorian mansion, its once bright facade now peeling and grey, like the skin of a dying man. Locals knew the house well, whispered tales of its sinister history passing from generation to generation. The new owners, a young couple blinded by the charm of the house's faded grandeur, dismissed the stories as mere folklore. They were determined to restore the house to its former glory, unaware that some houses are best left undisturbed. John and Mary poured their hearts into the restoration, spending long days and even longer nights uncovering the home's hidden beauty. One late night, John was in the basement, a cavernous space with a dirt floor and exposed beams, the air thick with the smell of mildew and decay. The only light came from a single bare bulb, hanging precariously from a wire, casting long dancing shadows. He was searching for an old water pipe when he heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper, seeming to come from the far end of the basement. He stopped, holding his breath, listening intently. The whisper came again, a low, mournful sound that sent shivers crawling down his spine. His heart began to pound, a primal fear gripping him. He called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" The only answer was the echoing silence. That night, lying in bed next to Mary, John couldn't shake the feeling of dread. He told Mary about the whisper, about the feeling of being watched, about the cold, unseen presence he felt lurking in the basement's shadows. Mary, ever the pragmatist, tried to soothe his fears, attributing them to exhaustion and an overactive imagination. But even as she spoke, she couldn't ignore the prickle of goosebumps rising on her arms. The house, which had once felt like a symbol of their shared dreams, now felt oppressive, suffocating. Over the next few days, the strange occurrences continued. Objects moved inexplicably, found in places where they hadn't been left. Footsteps echoed on the wooden floor above them, heavy and deliberate, even when they were alone in the house. And always the whispering persisted, growing louder each time, as if whatever lurked in the darkness was growing bolder. One evening, Mary was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she heard John cry out in terror from the basement. She rushed to the top of the basement stairs, her heart pounding in her chest, and called down to him. John, what is it? What's wrong?" His voice, thick with terror, floated up from the darkness below. "Mary, it's here! It's in here with me!" Our second story takes place in a quiet suburban neighbourhood, a place where manicured lawns and brightly painted houses promise safety and tranquility. But beneath the veneer of normalcy, darkness lurked in the most unexpected of places, the basement of the Henderson family home. The Hendersons were an ordinary family, a loving couple, Sarah and David, and their 2 young children, Emily and Ethan. They had lived in their home for 5 years, and in that time, the basement, with its cold concrete floor and flickering fluorescent lights, had become a repository for forgotten memories and unused belongings. One sweltering summer night, a fierce thunderstorm rolled through the neighbourhood, the wind howling like a banshee, rain lashing against the windows. As the storm raged, the lights flickered, plunging the house into darkness. A chorus of groans rippled through the house as appliances powered down. "Looks like the storm's knocked out the power," David said, his voice barely audible above the roar of the wind. He fumbled for his phone, using its dim light to navigate through the darkness. "Don't worry, kids, I'll find the flashlights." The children, huddled together on the living room floor, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of the television, were a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Blackouts, though inconvenient, held a strange thrill for them, a break from the ordinary. As David made his way to the basement door where he stored the emergency kit, a strange sound cut through the darkness. It was a low thump, muffled but distinct, coming from the basement stairs. He paused, his hand on the doorknob, listening intently. The thump came again, followed by a scraping sound like something heavy being dragged across the concrete floor. His heart began to race, a cold knot of fear forming in his stomach. "David, is everything all right?" Sarah called from the living room, her voice edged with concern. "Yeah, everything's fine," he called back, trying to sound casual despite the growing unease gnawing at him. "Just finding the flashlights. Be right there." Taking a deep breath, he slowly opened the basement door, the musty smell of damp earth and forgotten things wafting up to greet him. He flicked on the flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness. But the light only seemed to intensify the shadows that danced at the edge of its reach. "Hello," he called out, his voice echoing unnaturally in the confined space. "Is someone down there?" Only silence answered him. He took a tentative step down the stairs, his hand gripping the flashlight tightly. The steps creaked in protest, the sound amplified in the stillness. He reached the bottom of the stairs and swept the beam of his flashlight across the basement, but he could see nothing out of the ordinary. The basement, usually just a source of mild annoyance with its clutter and disorganization, now seemed menacing. Every shadow a potential hiding place, every creak and groan a whispered threat. Suddenly, there it was again. The thump, closer this time, followed by a low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate in his chest. He froze, his blood turning to ice in his veins. This was no figment of his imagination. Something was down there with him, something angry, something dangerous. Turning on his heel, he ran back up the stairs, taking them two at a time, his heart pounding in his ears. He slammed the door shut, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. Our final tale takes us to a sprawling ranch house on the outskirts of a bustling city. Behind its charming facade lay a secret, hidden behind a locked door in the basement. The Miller family, eager to escape city life, had purchased the house at a steal. It was perfect in every way. Spacious, well-maintained and full of potential. They were a family on the cusp of a new beginning, unaware of the nightmare awaiting them. From the moment they moved in, there was an undeniable feeling of unease in the basement. It was colder, damper, the air thick with mildew and something else, something indefinable. The basement was unremarkable. Concrete floor, exposed pipes and shelves stacked with boxes. But at the far end beneath the stairs was a door. A heavy wooden door, painted a dark red, secured with a thick padlock. Curiosity got the better of them. What lay behind that door? The locked door became an obsession for Robert, the new homeowner. He tried every key he could find, but none fit. He spent hours researching old house plans, but found nothing. One afternoon, while rummaging through the attic, Robert found a small, dusty box. Inside, amongst old photographs and letters, was a key, a heavy, ornate key, tarnished with age. He knew this was the key to the locked door. That evening, Robert made his way to the basement. He stood in front of the door, the key heavy in his hand. He hesitated, a sense of foreboding washing over him. What would he find behind that door? He took a deep breath and inserted the key into the lock. It turned with a heavy click. He grasped the doorknob and slowly pulled the door open. The room was plunged in darkness, the air thick with decay and something metallic. He fumbled for the light switch, his heart pounding. The bare bulb flickered to life, and Robert gasped. The room was small, its walls bare concrete. In the centre, bolted to the floor, was a heavy metal chair, and strapped to that chair was a skeleton. The skull lolled to the side, its empty socket staring at him. Clutched in its bony fingers was a small, tarnished silver locket. Robert, his hands shaking, pried it open. Inside was a small, faded photograph of a young woman. Her face held a look of terror that mirrored his own. Etched on the back of the photograph were two words: "Help me." Thank you for joining me in this eerie journey into the unknown. Remember, some mysteries are best left unsolved. Sleep tight and keep listening for those bumps in the night. You never know what might be lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the chance to break free.